Hello and welcome to episode 75 of the Wisdom from the Akasha Podcast. My name is Susie, I am your host, and I'm an Akashic Records teacher and practitioner. Today I want to talk about a topic that came up in the membership at the end of June, and I think this is an important conversation that we need to be having right now in view of what's going on in the world, and to be able to zoom out a little bit and see things from a bigger picture perspective, and to be able to understand where we can kind of have a say and influence things, and also where we need to understand the bigger picture that's unfolding. So that's my intention with today's episode. We kind of got sidetracked into this conversation in the membership, which does happen. Obviously, what goes on in the world and the spiritual implications of that often comes up in the membership. So if you are wanting to join this month's membership, we're going to be doing the spiritual hierarchy. So understanding the different levels of spiritual beings that you can connect into and that are going to support you on your journey. So I'll pop the links to join the membership in the show notes below. I should also mention as well that I have another free Akashic Records workshop coming up in September. If you haven't been able to make the other ones live, or if you're a new podcast listener here and you would like to come along, please do get registered for that. If you aren't able to attend live, don't panic, it's completely okay. You will receive access to the recording of that free workshop after the workshop has taken place. If you're new here, if you are interested in the Akashic Records, free workshops are a great way to sit down with me on Zoom and chat and ask questions and hopefully learn something as well. One of the things that becomes very, very apparent when you are on your spiritual journey is that the physical reality is not all that there is. What you're doing on your spiritual journey and throughout your spiritual awakening, you're expanding your consciousness, you're expanding your awareness to be able to see that there are different realms of reality. Okay, that's essentially what is happening. And our topic today is, what is Loosh? Now, Loosh is a term that was coined by an individual called Robert Monroe. Robert Monroe set up the Monroe Institute, and most people have heard of the Monroe Institute in respect of the hemisync practices. And he was someone who taught, as far as I understand, I'm not a student of his, but he was someone who taught out-of-body experiences. And he coined this term Loosh to explain that when we are emotional about something, okay, so when we have those big emotions, this creates energy, as we know. If you get really mad about something, you can feel it, okay? You can feel the energy. Perhaps it's a burning sensation in your stomach. Perhaps it's just energy where you need to do something with it. And what he was talking about is the energetic impact of this within different realms. And that what happens is there's this substance created called Loosh. And that this substance, this Loosh, is what we utilize to essentially co-create our reality. So if you look at a lot of the manifestation teachings and law of attraction teachings, they really focus in on the feeling of. So the feeling of being expansive, the feeling of being wealthy, the feeling of being aligned to joy. And you'll also hear spiritual teachers say, align to joy. Do what lights you up. Do whatever makes your heart happy. Okay, all of these things are talking about this concept of Loosh. Now, where I disagree slightly with Robert Monroe in this conversation around Loosh is that he believes that Earth is simply this Loosh farm for other beings. And I don't think that's the case, but I do absolutely agree that there's this energetic reverberation, there's this impact of big emotions within ourselves energetically and within our light grid, and also the different dimensions of reality that we are part of. A lot of the time when there's conversations around Loosh, the focus is on the kind of Loosh in its more negative aspect. So what I mean by that is the Loosh, this energy, this force that's created when there are lots of feelings of, say, anger or fear. Okay, and this tends to be what the conversation focuses around. But what we have to understand is that this loosh, this energy, this substance, essentially, is created when you're in the higher emotions as well. So when you are in love, when you are in joy, when you are in bliss, and you are having those big feelings that are those higher vibrational feelings, that's also creating this energetic reverberation into these other dimensions and these other realms. Our choice, our free will as humans, is what loosh am I going to create? Am I going to create more of the negative? Am I going to get tied into the narratives of fear and anger and get drawn into increasing that? Or am I going to increase the more positive loosh? Now, what we see is that when humans collectively go through experiences where we essentially get put into a little pressure cooker, okay, these big feelings are created. And that can be the big feelings that are more negative or the big feelings that are more positive. For those of us who are spiritually aware, we are consciously making the choice as to which energy we want to add into. Now, these energies, so whether it's the positive or the negative loosh, go towards energizing different beings. And as you can imagine, the positive loosh is going to go towards beings in higher dimensions. It's going to help support their work and their roles in the spiritual hierarchies. And then the more negative, the denser loosh, that's going to go to the beings of the devolutionary stream. So our job is to decide which stream do I want to connect into? Which stream do I want to feed? And I don't like that word feed because it sounds very parasitic, but I hope you get what I'm saying with it. So this is our choice, okay? Now, what I want to make very clear is this is not about bypassing. I am not ever one of those people who is going to tell you, well, if you're experiencing fear or if you're experiencing anger, just avoid it, just ignore it, just brush it under the carpet and pretend to be in love or pretend to be in joy. That's not my intention here at all. But what we have to do as conscious spiritual people is we have to sit and we have to acknowledge when we have those big feelings of fear or those big feelings of anger. And we have to move to a place where we're able to transmute it. So transmuting it, alchemizing it, turning that emotion, that power behind that emotion into love, into unconditional love. Now, this is advanced work. So this is not easy. This is not something you do once and then all of a sudden you're a master at it. But there are practices out there that will teach you how to, first of all, acknowledge and sit with that uncomfortable energy that maybe you've been avoiding and maybe you've been bypassing, and then transmuting that into the higher energies of love, unconditional love, and joy. As I said, this is not easy, but it is something that's very, very worthwhile. We have to remember the center point of our spiritual development at this time is the heart chakra. This is the home of the Christ consciousness. This is our balancing point. This connection to love and unconditional love is what's going to keep you balanced. Okay, so this is not ignoring what's going on in the world. This is not pretending that everything is love and light and unicorns and rainbows, but it is utilizing the energies that are being stimulated in the collective that you may be picking up on, okay? Utilizing that in a way to create more of the more positive loosh. So I hope that gives you an overview as to what it is and what we're supposed to do with it. So we know now that our emotions are, first of all, never to be avoided, never to be repressed, but we can transmute them. We can make a conscious decision to sit with them, feel them, and turn them into a more positive aspect. And I just wanted to give you some tips on how to not only do this practice, but also how to keep yourself centered in that heart space. Keep your heart open when it is a challenging time, when it's quite chaotic, when there's a lot of confusion, when there's a lot of noise. The first thing I'd recommend is a practice by Pema Chodron. It's a Buddhist practice. And it's about breathing in this negative energy. So sitting in your meditation and breathing it in. So breathing in the anger, breathing in the fear, and then breathing out love. Okay. Now, obviously for this practice, you have to first have a stabilized nervous system. Okay. If you have a dysregulated nervous system, you're not going to be able to get into the heart space. Okay. Definitely check out my episode on nervous system regulation, root chakra, first of all. But if you feel like you've got that down and you want to really start working with that, then the simple practice of breathing it in and breathing out love and sending that love that you're sending out to the entire world. Okay, that's a really good practice. A couple of tips I also wanted to give you, all the listeners, that I also gave the members, is first of all, when you need to, disconnect from the noise. Our human brains were not designed to hear about everything that's going on everywhere in the world all the time, 24/7. Add into that manipulation of information and sheer volume of information and AI generated information, your brain is completely overwhelmed. Your energy bodies are completely overwhelmed. So it's completely okay to say, I just need a break. Try not to get stuck in the doom programming of doom scrolling and going through all of the narratives of telling you everything that's going wrong with the world at this moment in time. Take some time out and be okay with that. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you uneducated, and it doesn't mean that you're not invested in this expansion of consciousness and the evolution of consciousness that we're going through. Okay, you're also a human being, and you need to honor that aspect of your humanity, and you need to be okay with taking care of the human needs as well. That'd be the first thing. The second thing is you can't control a lot of the things that are going on, and you'll be getting fixated on a lot of things that you can't control. There is a practice where you have to be able to acknowledge what's going on, to acknowledge what emotions that's bringing up within you, and if you're very empathic, the collective or your family and friends, and then also let it go. Okay, acknowledging that there is in higher consciousness this much bigger picture perspective that you may not understand. You may not understand why certain things are happening, what's going on, but you also need to be able to surrender into that not knowing. So don't fixate on what you can't control. The next tip that I'd like to give you is, if you are finding yourself going down the rabbit holes and doom scrolling and fixating on things that you can't control, rather than doing that, try to channel the energy into something much more creative. So what are you bringing forward for your community? And whether that's your community online or your community in person, what are you doing that is making use of that energy for something that is positive? Perhaps you have lots of information about a specific topic and you really want to write a book about it and you just haven't gotten around to it. And you know that this book that's inside of you is really going to help humanity through difficult times. Get on with the writing process. If you see your family or friends particularly getting bogged down in this, perhaps just sitting with them for a coffee and actively listening to them is what they need. They just need someone to hold space for them and to share with them. But look at the positive impact you can have. I know it can sometimes be a little bit disheartening and it can kind of be, well, I can't make any impact, so why should I bother? But actually, everybody doing their little bit in respect of what they can create, what they can bring forward to help humanity, and also that transmutation process that I talked about earlier, that's actually really important. You may not see and you may not know the impact that that has in those higher dimensions, but I can assure you that everyone doing their bit is what's most important. My last reminder on this one is, remember that this is what you signed up for. Okay, I know so many times people will say, I definitely didn't sign up to be at Earth. I must have been drunk. I must have been high as a soul before I picked this lifetime. But you definitely did choose to be here at this time. And Earth is a school. You're here as an eternal, infinite soul to have an experience in physical reality and evolve through that experience. I know it can sometimes feel difficult, and I know certainly during mass awakening periods, there's always difficulties that arise, but just remember that this is part of what you signed up for, and every little thing that you do, every time you sit down to sit in the energy of fear or anger and transmute it, that's amazing. That is so good from the evolution of the soul's perspective and the evolution of humanity as a collective. Remember, even during these times, try to keep your heart open, try to keep connected into love, into unconditional love. Keep yourself grounded. Take care of yourself as a human being. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed with all of these different energies, all of this different information. And where you can, find joy in your life. Have some fun in your life. Try to remember to smile and laugh as well. So I hope you found this episode useful, and I look forward to seeing you next week for the next episode.